I remember when I was 12 years old, my father had a television show called The Hallelujah Train that was on the local CBS affiliate. It was like a gospel show. And Al Green had just gotten burned by a woman in the face. I think she threw a pot of grits on his face and burned him, and he converted to religion, became very religious. It was like the 70s, right? So Al Green was coming in to perform on the show. And he flew into town, but his drummer didn't make it. And the taping was like in about 2 hours, and I was standing there with my dad and everything, and he was talking to Mr. Green. I said, well, Mr. Green, my 12-year-old boy plays drums. I'm looking at my dad like, what you talking about, Willis? You know, I was freaked out. So anyway, I got to play one song with Al Green when I was 12 years old. And after playing with Al Green, he walked me out into his car, and he was about to go back to the airport, and he pulled out a checkbook. He gave me a $250 check. Now, when I was 12 years old, that was a lot of money. I'm like, it might be something to this. So I pursued drumming as a career, started that off. And I guess the initiative that I want to talk about tonight for TED, is that Gregory Kallenberg really made a very good point about this community of Shreveport being a very great place. It's a lot of activity happening now with the digital media component, the film, my studio, you know, we do a music component. But there's one thing, the neighborhood I grew up in, Stoner Hill, here in the city, there's still a lot of kids that don't even know where the airport is, let alone a plane ticket. So one of the objectives that me and a few other people are kind of going about is forming a School of Fine Arts, very specialized School of Fine Arts for our city of Shreveport. So I'm talking about a very local kind of situation, and I'm sure other cities may have this problem if this is being webcast. And the thing that I found with education was kind of evident. I was with a friend of mine who plays for the Giants, and he was in New York, went out to dinner, he paid for it, it was great. Flew back to Shreveport, and my 10th grade teacher wanted to take me out to dinner. I think we're at Taco Mania, and her credit card didn't work. So the point is, not saying that sports is bad, I think it's great, but we actually put our kids in the care of people, and we expect for those people to educate our kids, but we pay them peanuts. Okay, we know it's a problem, it's a big mountain to tackle. So I had to think to myself, well, what can I do? Because growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana, I didn't have an opportunity to go to a studio like Blade or to a place like Moonbot. I didn't get a chance to go to a lot of things because it just wasn't here. So I had to kind of, you know, fight my way or try to figure out and hopefully and just try to learn as much as I can. This is before the internet was very prominent, so therefore you still had your encyclopedia set. You had books to read. But the main thing is that I had good family support, and that accounts for a lot. As that family support is now dwindling in our society, and these kids don't really have that support, they're kind of getting lost. Now, as a sidetrack, I was living in London. I had a company there or whatever in the 90s, and I'd sold it. It was a management company, and it was great living in London. But I wanted to go back to graduate school. So my father, who's a local minister, said, hey, Henson, my father, who's a local minister, wanted to start an alternative school, which I thought was pretty ingenious on his part, because if you're a 13-year-old kid and you're already probably behind in school and you get caught stealing a car or selling some kind of narcotic, you end up going to juvenile jail. Now, when you do go to this juvenile jail and you come out, hopefully when you're 15 or 16, to try to get back in school, it's impossible because the educational system and the penal system for juveniles is non-existent pretty much. You're just trying to survive every day. So he found that all these kids were struggling with trying to get themselves together. So he wanted to start this school to help these kids obtain their GED, just their basic GED. Statistically speaking, the kids that went to jail and came out really didn't do well. They went back to jail or they went and all this other stuff. But we did have a success rate of getting some kids, and some finished college, But the ones that really lingered with me were the ones that did not make it, that were either killed or they had these dreams and this great hope. You could see it in their eyes. And then you went to the family unit and it wasn't there. So to talk to these kids about trying to express their artistic expression or be creative or excel in mathematics, it was irrelevant because they had to just basically merely survive day by day, and they had to do what they had to do then. Back to the present. Here in Shreveport right now, our school system, I think, is great. We've got some good schools, but we have a lack in the entertainment area of these kids having access to it. And that's something that Blade Studios and Moonbot Studios are joining together to start the school at our particular businesses with a very finite amount of students, to have hands-on experience of how to do audio and sound, how to splice tape, how to run these magnificent SLSL boards with all this outboard gear. On the animated side, how to teach them to be animators, how to da-da-da. And it doesn't matter where you're from because you're gonna have to audition to get in the school. You're gonna have to at least have a passion to write down, articulate exactly what you wanna do. Now, this may only start with about 20 students, but our plan is very, very, very ambitious. And the initiative that I'm calling on from you and our community is to assist us in accomplishing this goal. So all this creative, cool stuff that Hanson's doing, I mean, he had to have somewhat of a scientific background. He had to have some knowledge of mathematics and art and all these beautiful things. From the sound capabilities, I had to have some kind of education to do this. I've been fortunate enough to travel around the world. It's been great. But I still go back to, if I go to Stoner Hill now, it's a lot of kids don't even know what this is. So it's a very simple little thing that I'm trying to accomplish. Our community is great and rich, and we have to support it. It's a village. And just like Greg Kallenberg moved back from Austin, Texas, I moved back from Stockholm, Sweden to start my business here in Shreveport. Yeah, I could have gone to England and just worked there, made a lot of money, and all this other stuff, this other opportunity I had at the time. But at this age of my life, where I have two young kids, 7 and 3, and wanting them to live in Shreveport, Louisiana, where my parents still live, and that's why I'm here, fortunate for that. I'm like, what kind of city can I make this and be a little small part of it to help make it great? So that's the initiative that we're looking for. I don't have any fancy presentations. I don't have any things like that. My door's always open at the studio for ideas. But the one thing I do love is that Clinton McCommon putting this together, and Hanson, we were all kind of working together. The guy who actually helped shot Gregory's film, Rob Svenska, is now working at the studio this week as I'm producing Kenny Wayne Shepherd, another local great, doing his first record in Louisiana. He's a big star, lives out in Malibu, California, came home to do his record. So it's that kind of synergy that's starting to kind of really happen besides the movie stars popping in and out. We got some cool hip people that are actually coming back home because it's a great place to be. Simple as that. I love my community. And wherever I go, and wherever my brother Brian goes, we talk about Shreveport, Louisiana. Whether we're in Tokyo, Stockholm, London, it doesn't matter. Where are you from? Shreveport, Louisiana. I say it proudly because I like my town. I like getting around. I like getting to the airport because I can get out in like 15 minutes because, it's pretty good. I mean, you can leave your car on the curb for like 20 minutes. You don't even get a ticket. In LA, your car's towed, it's gone, So it's all these beautiful little high points about our community that are great. And I'm thinking if all of us are adults and with our great, things that are happening around us, if we take a moment to kind of work with these kids, in addition to our own, obviously, but if we can come together and just do a little part, it's amazing what kind of results we'll get from those small efforts. That's all I got to say. Thank you.